A Century Later by Imtiaz Dharker. The first thing to know about this poem is that it was written 100 years after the beginning of the First World War, hence the title. Just as that war was one fought in the name of freedom and liberty, so today there's a new kind of war for a similar ideal: girls' right to education around the world. As this map indicates, there are huge swathes of the globe where girls receive less, little, or no education compared to boys. In the poem, whilst this fight involves guns, bullets, and violence, it is not between soldiers from opposing armies, but with armed fanatics on the one side and defenceless schoolgirls on the other. The odds appear to be stacked heavily against the youngsters. The victim is presented in vulnerable terms and, shockingly, is shot in the head. Yet, she walks on and continues, as Dharker's use of enjambment across the stanza break further underscores. Her survival and very ordinariness is a direct rebuke to those who tried to prevent her from learning. She is contemptuous of the bullet because violence cannot defeat knowledge and education. By the end, more and more girls join in the fight and make their defiant stand. The first stanza contains a semantic field of war, which makes the mention of the young girl seem incongruous and surprising. The second stanza describes the shocking moment of the shooting, but this abhorrent action in the next stanza is somehow neutralized by her mind, the power of the imagination perhaps. The mention of the orchard reminds the reader that its fruit is apples, which links appropriately with the biblical idea of the tree of knowledge. The poppy-filled field and its trees is a blissful and peaceful image, in contrast to the violent brutality of being shot, which manages to create a strong and gentle note of defiance. Consequently, the schoolgirl is presented as the clear winner of this battle. Perhaps surprisingly, her prize is not honour or glory, but the commonplace and unremarkable, the kinds of things many of us take for granted. This highlights how even basic rights which we enjoy are being denied to millions of girls simply because of their gender. Significantly, Dharker gives the girl a voice to further assert how girls will not be silenced. Note also how the girl expresses herself in statements with full stops to convey certainty and defiance. The reference to a book's buzzing represents the energy of ideas, which can counter the stupidity of war and violence and perhaps suggest that ideas can stop wars. It is also a callback to the humming of the girl's mind earlier. There's another hint of buzzing with the girls standing up to support the victim being likened to a swarm of bees. Like the insect, the girls will work together for a common goal. This arguably ends the poem on a hopeful note because the girls are asserting themselves. They won't be intimidated. However, it could be said that in fact the ending is pessimistic because A, the battle to be educated is still having to be fought, and B, it implies there will be more needless child victims, including deaths, in the future. The clear inspiration for this poem is the real-life attempted murder of Malala Yousafzai, who in 2012, aged 15, was shot in the head in her native Pakistan by the Taliban, an extremist group who are firmly opposed on religious grounds to the education of girls and women. Her so-called crime was to speak out against the Taliban's efforts to prevent girls going to school. Miraculously, she survived her ordeal and has since gone on to become an internationally famous activist for girls' education, winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014, the youngest ever winner. Her courageous, peaceful example, like the fictional girl of the poem, is an inspiration and model for us all. The clear note of defiance in A Century Later is echoed in England in 1819, Name Journeys, and, perhaps more quietly, Homing. Giving a voice to the powerless is a feature of Pot 2, whilst there are links to be made between the children of a century later with Caleb Femi's 13, which also references schools.